Hey everyone, Kang here and welcome to Who is Kang? Now I want to make this video series because a lot of you guys have been coming to my live streams for a long time now, even over a year, some of you guys, but you may not know too much about me because I don't really talk that much about myself during the streams. Yeah, you guys know, where I live, where I grew up, Florida, things like that, simple stuff, but my childhood, my past, I don't really get that deep into it because you guys are there to be entertained. You're there to watch a video game and not there to hear my life story. So I wanted to make this video series for people that were interested in hearing a little bit more about me, because as we continue to grow a community, I think it will be a good thing for you to know who is Kang. Like, who is this person that's at the head of this community that's trying to grow it, and that is trying to give you guys a good place to come to every night. You know why I am the way that I am and how I got to this point. So, without further ado, this is part one of a series of videos in which I will be telling you a little bit more about myself. So I guess I should start off by introducing you guys to my mom. Now my mom, beautiful woman, she probably could have been a model if she wanted to, but she grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida as well, where I grew up and spent most of my life. And she met my father when she was very young. Now, when I say young, I mean young. She was 16 and he was 32. So that's pretty much almost illegal. Pretty much is. But my grandmother, her mother, knew about it, and I guess she was okay with it. So I guess I don't know the law, but whatever. It is what it is. 16, 32. It is what it is. A few years later, or maybe I'm not really sure the time frame, but my mom moved in with my father, and then shortly after that, when my mom was about 20, she got pregnant with me. I popped out and fast forward because I don't remember much of anything from until I was about 5 years old. My earliest memories were when I was 5 years old. One of my earliest memories. Now, my father had children from another marriage, so I had half siblings. Earliest memory was me on the porch of my father's house. I had a loose tooth in my mouth, and my half brother got the bright idea to get some pliers, wrap paper towel around the teeth, and use those pliers to try to get the tooth out of my mouth. Needless to say, that hurt like heck, and it didn't even work because the tooth didn't come out. So, great childhood memories all around. Most of my memories are like that. I remember another memory. My brother tricked me into sticking my tongue on one of those 9-volt batteries, the ones that will like shock you if you. Yeah, great memories growing up. It was a great time in my household. So now, I don't have many memories growing up, but I learned about different things as I got older. Earlier I mentioned that my mom moved into my father's house, and that, I also mentioned that my father had children from a previous marriage. Now here's where it gets a little bit weird. Okay. My mom moved into the house with my father, but also in that same house was my father's wife. So my mom moved into the house with my father and his wife. He moved my mom into the house under the guise, the pretense that this was his cousin. Yeah. Eventually, the wife figured out that it wasn't a cousin, but by then there are other situations in which they kind of bonded on. My mom and my father had an abusive relationship. And again, me being young, I didn't really know this, but as I got older, the things I read and heard, I learned about it. And he was abusive to the wife as well. So they kind of bonded on this factoid of the abuse. It was kind of like they were in it together, and they were gonna try to make it out together. They're in it together, and then even though the situation was just really weird, they were in it together. And that's how they bonded. Now my mom, very smart woman. She was working. She had her own car. She was making her own money. So eventually my mom got tired of the abuse and she made decisions in our life that would, better what was going on. So one night, again, one of my earliest memories, and I'll never forget this night, never forget this night. My mom woke me up in the middle of the night and she said, "Don't make a noise. Don't say anything." So I didn't. We got up. We left the house. Her car was already packed with all of our stuff, and we just left in the middle of the night. My mom had already gotten a new apartment for both of us, and that's where we would start our new life, just me and her. Being a kid, I still didn't really understand what was going on, but I was really happy that I was with my mom. I was really happy because I had my own room. My mom worked at a thrift store, so she was able to get me a Nintendo and had my own room. That's how I started playing video games. My mom got me the Nintendo from the thrift store she worked at, and I had my own room, and she got all the games from the thrift store, so they were very cheap. And I was in my room playing Mario, Duck Hunt, Karate, I think it's Karate Kid or whatever the games were. I was playing all those games growing up, and that's how I got started. And again, a kid, I didn't know. I was just happy to be with my mom. Even though I had my own room, me and my mom, we would sleep in the living room most nights, just watching TV together. And that was how it was for a while. That was how it was. My father had visitation. So every time I went to visit him, it was always the same thing. He would just drive me around on his bike, and he would ask me to show him where my mom and I lived. And again, being a dumb kid and not knowing what was going on, I would try to show him, because he would say things like, "Show me where you guys live and we can go play Nintendo together." He would say things like that. And I'm like, "Oh wow, that's so cool. Let's just try to point it out, point my house out to him so we can go play together, And even to this day, I'm still very directionally challenged. So I was never able to actually show him where I lived. I would point out places I thought we lived, but it would never be where we lived. And I'm kind of thankful for that, for various reasons. As you guys can probably assume, some crazy ex-boyfriend trying to find out where your mom lives is not a good thing. So we never found out. He never found out that way. Fast forward. Actually, another memory growing up now. So I was a good kid. I got good grades in school. I was pretty much, one of those kids that always did his homework and got good grades. No problems. One morning, though, I did not do my homework. And so I was getting ready for school in the morning, and I needed to do my homework from the night previously. So that's what I was supposed to be doing. But instead of doing that, I was watching Beetlejuice. If you guys remember the old Beetlejuice cartoon that used to come on TV, I was watching Beetlejuice on TV instead of doing my homework. When my mom found out, she was not very happy. And that's the earliest memory I have of my mom, giving me a spanking. Because, she was not very pleased with me not doing my homework and watching Beetlejuice. So, the TV turned off. I got a spanking, did my homework, and off to school we went. So that was the routine. My mom would take me to school, and she would go back home or go to work, whatever she had to do for the day. There were a lot of instances where my father would see my mom's car riding around town, and he would follow her. But she would always notice him following. So what she would do is she would go to her mom's house. Her mom's house. My grandmother lived with my uncle. So there would always be my uncle there and maybe his brother there. Two big burly dudes there to try to protect, my mom from this crazy guy following her around. He wanted to follow her to try to talk to her and, try to get her back and all this. That's what he would say. But that happened a couple of times. There was even a restraining order against him to try to stop him from doing that. But of course, that stuff doesn't really work. So one morning, unlike any other morning, I was getting ready for school. and my mom dropped me off to school. But this morning was a little different because my father saw my mom's car again, but this time she didn't notice. She didn't notice that he was following her. So she got all the way back to her house before she finally noticed. And by then, it was too late because he had saw where she lived. So she noticed that he was there behind her at this point in time. So she tried to run into the house. But he was already close enough to force his way into the door because he was right behind her. From what I hear, they were arguing or talking. He was pretty much trying to beg her to come back and different things like that. She called the police, and there was a recording of the call. You know, she was panicking and trying to get them to come to the house. He disconnected the line before she could continue talking. Now, he brought a gun with him. I'm not sure why, if he just wanted to talk to her, but he brought a gun with her. Now, my mom had a gun as well, but of course, the gun was not present or easily accessible, and nor was it loaded. So she actually tried to get to her weapon and load it. And of course, he had his weapon with him. And before she could put the bullets into her gun to try to defend herself, he opened fire and shot her. And my mom she died right there. And he ran. He just ran away. So going back to me at school, again, it was unlike any other day, except that day I got called out of school early by my grandmother and my uncle. They came and got me. And again, I didn't know what was going on. We drove by my mom's house, and there were police officers everywhere, reporters, and they were asking my grandmother questions about what was going on. But my grandmother didn't really answer any of the questions. And I still didn't know what was going on. I just saw this commotion, and I'm waving at the cameras, and I don't know what the heck is going on. So we go back to my grandmother's house. And again, I remember all this stuff. These are some of my earliest memories, and I remember this, and then a lot of stuff after this I don't remember, but this I will always remember. So we go back to my grandmother's house, and everyone is there. My grandmother, my uncle, his brother, my aunt, everyone's there, and it's just really quiet, really somber. And I still don't know what's going on. So I finally go to my grandmother, and I'm like, "Where's my mom?" Like, cause everyone's here and I'm here, but like, where's my mom? And she said, "Your mom's gone." And I said, "Okay, so when is she coming back?" And she said, "Never." And at that point, I just burst out crying because I still didn't understand what was going on. But the fact that my grandmother told me that my mom was never coming back was enough for a 5 or 6-year-old child to burst out crying. She said she's never coming back. So at that point in time, I started living with my grandmother. I would have these recurring nightmares about the night that my grandmother, my mom, I say, escaped from my father's house. And it always happened the same way, the same exact way. My mom is ushering me out the house, and we get into the car, and then we're driving down the road. It's really dark outside, and all of a sudden a tornado comes out of nowhere and just takes my mom out of the car. Over and over again, I would have this same dream over and over again. I guess it was just my mind's way of just telling me that my mom wasn't there anymore and relating that event that night to what happened. I would cry every single night for months, every night. Sad child, you know. I would have to sleep in my grandmother's room because I was just distraught, of course. But, you know, eventually the nightmare stopped, the crying stopped, and I kind of got, you know, accustomed to the new way of living, and life kind of moved on. At this point in my life, I'm okay. That's why I'm able to tell this story. That's why I'm able to make this video. My father went to jail. They caught him. He went to prison. He didn't go to jail for very long. He went for like, I don't know. By the time I was out, by the time I was in high school, he was already out. So that tells you how long he was in there. If I was 5 and by the time I was in high school, so maybe 10 years, 10, 11 years, I don't know. But he was out. So he didn't go to jail for very long. I say that I'm okay because a few years ago, as a matter of fact, I reached out to my father. I reached out to him because I had something in my heart that was telling me that I wasn't okay and that I needed to resolve some issues. So through some detective work and some people that helped me out, I was able to get my father's address, his phone number, all that information on him. And I remember this day as well. I was at work and I took a break, my lunch break, but I didn't eat because I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. So I went to my car, I sat in my car, and I called him. The first time I called him, I don't think he answered. Okay. So I said, this may be the wrong number. I don't know. So I called him again. This time, he answered. He said, hello, who is this? And I froze. I completely froze up. I could not say a word. I couldn't say a single word. I hung up the phone. I hung up the phone because I just could not say a thing. My heart was just like this locked. My mouth was locked. He answered the phone. I hung up. So it took me a minute to gather myself again. And I said, you know what? All right. Calm down. So I called him again. This time he's a little bit upset. You know, this is the third time that I've called him. And he said, hello, who is this? And I was like, this is Wayne. My name is Wayne. This is Wayne. And he was like, Wayne who? And I said, in a cracky voice, because my voice was trembling and cracking, I said, your son. And he said, and before he could even finish repeating what I said, he was like, oh. You know, that kind of like that epiphany that just smacks you in the face. He was like, oh. So he started rambling on and on. He started going on about, he was trying to explain to me what happened during the story that I just told you when he you know, murdered my mom. He was saying, oh, it wasn't like that. It wasn't how they said it was, and yada yada yada. And I stopped him. I said, you know what? I didn't call you to like hear the story or, you know, you defend yourself about what happened or me to confront you on it. I called you to say that I forgive you for what happened. That I forgive you. And he started to cry. He was like, oh man, that means a lot to me. I don't even know what to say. And I said, it's all right. You know, that's the only reason I called you, because I just wanted to tell you to your face or over the phone that I forgave you, and I wanted to get that off my heart. So I forgave him. And that was the last time I talked to him. That was a few years ago. He tried to call me again, but I didn't really want to have him in my life, you know? I just wanted to just get that part of my life and move on with it. Something that was very traumatic for me as a child, and something that was deep down in my heart, some kind of hatred, you know? And I moved on, you know? I haven't talked to him because I don't really. He's a terrible person apparently, so I don't really want terrible people in my life. But at least I moved on from it, you know. So all that to say that, you know, that story is just one part of my life, and I share that because I want you guys to know what I came from, how I grew up. I lived with my grandmother until I moved off to college, and she raised me, you know, when my mother died. The things I've gone through, there's even more to the story than just my childhood. And that's what part 2 and maybe part 3 of this series will be about. College, after college, things like that. So this was a kind of a sad story, but again, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I'm okay. People go through different things in life, and that makes them the person that they are. It builds their character, you know. And sometimes I do think about, like, what if things would have happened differently, how my life would have been changed, or just, I don't know. But you can't really think about that. Sometimes you do, like, what if my mom was still here? Like, having a mom who I could talk to and share things with, that would have been cool. That would have been awesome. Or even having a father in my life that could teach me different things growing up, that I could hang out with, you know. That would have been cool. But, you know, life doesn't always give you what you want, but life sometimes gives you what you need, you know. So part 1, sad but happy at the same time, and we will be back again for another part, and hopefully you guys got a little more insight. If you have any questions, feel free to leave some questions in the comments. I will go through and read them and answer. I'll probably try to answer every single question, guys, because you guys may have some more questions about what happened. Maybe I left out some details you may be curious about, so I'll answer your questions. But this was part 1 again, and there's gonna be more, and I hope you enjoyed it, even though it was sad. But at least you got to know a little bit more about me and how I grew up and what happened to me when I was a child. You know, it's not always happy stories, but there will be some happy stories coming up. Some funny stories, some weird things that have happened to me, especially in college. So stay tuned. And yeah, we'll be back soon, guys. So take care. Kang out. I love you guys so much. Just remember that. You guys are awesome. I love you guys. Take care. Bye. Bye, bye, bye.